Welcome to SIS Stories. This is Miss Bacigalupo's English 10 class, storytelling under the theme, Enter, Return. This is Andy's memoir. Listen to his story about going on an athletic field trip when the basketball game really wasn't the main event.
I looked to my right, outside the window. A stream of colors, blue, gray, and green, streamed by, just as the waves of an ocean would wash across the soft, sandy beach. I'm lost in thought, sitting there, until I'm brought back to my senses through the soft humming of the bus engine. And all of a sudden, all motion stops. I grab my carry-on bag and start heading off, just as everyone else on the team was doing the same. We had arrived in Guangzhou. This was AISG, a school that was so big that SIS paled in comparison. It was magnificent, but it loomed above us, and it seemed to be trying to intimidate us. This school had 2 basketball courts, 2 outdoor fields, and multiple school buildings, all connected together in one spot. Our team starts walking. We get off the bus and are told by a guide to place our bags down in the designated room. We start heading to the basketball courts, and that's when I hear the beautiful sounds of basketballs bouncing on the hard, polished wooden floors, as well as the sound of a ball swishing through the net. We look around. We see teams that we've played before. However, we had no idea how much better they had gotten. I turn to Jinu and I ask him, "What place do you think we'll get in this tournament?" He turns to me and tells me, "I think we're going to get either second or third, but we might even get first place." All of a sudden, our coach, Mr. Park, walks up from behind us and says, "I doubt you guys will even make third place. I mean, I'd be happy if you did, but I don't think so." And so Pablo comes up and we make a deal. If we place at least third place in this tournament, we'd be able to have a pizza party during sports awards, and we'd also be able to pour hot and sticky Gatorade all over Coach Park. And so we meet up as a team as we get ready to play our first game. We start with our warm-ups, high knees, opening and closing the gates, and a bit of shooting around. So the sudden, sharp sound of a whistle cut through the air, which signaled the start for our game. The game went by fast, with each team starting to score in the double digits. Shot after shot went in, and the teams were running up and down the court as fast as they could. I could tell after a few minutes that we were starting to get tired. Shots weren't falling in anymore. Passes were getting sloppy, and I knew it would be time for the game to end soon. And that's when another whistle blew. I looked towards the scoreboard. The numbers 23 and 21. Above the numbers 23 was the words SIS, which meant we had won this first game. However, this would only be the first of many, because during the first 2 days of SDRC, it would only secure our placement in the brackets. However, it would be the final day which would decide whether we would place first, second, or third. And so, with a sigh of relief, our team gathers together. We celebrate, and we do a bit more shooting around. The second game of the day went by quick with another win for us. However, that game seemed a little too easy. It was against the AISG B team. However, we knew that their A team would be much, much stronger. When the games were finally over, it was time to meet our host. Our school seemed to be called upon last, and as more and more names were called upon, more and more people started to disappear from the gym. Soon, the only ones left standing were me, Jinu, Pablo, and another kid that I did not recognize. When I looked towards him, he started walking to us. He had black hair, short black hair. He was a small kid, probably 160 centimeters in height. He was Asian, and he was on the AISG B team. He walks up to us and he tells us, "Hey guys, I think I'll be hosting you guys tonight." And so me, Jinu, and Pablo follow him to the bus. He seemed like the kind of kid who would get straight A's on his grades and the kind of kid who would get 100% on all his tests. Once we arrived on the bus, we started heading off. AISG was a loud school. They had lots of kids, and there was one specific kid we met on the bus. His name was Tyler, and I remember him walking up to us, and he asked if we had an empty bottle. Sure we did. I mean, the tournament was over, so we handed him the bottle. For some reason, he just poured out all the water and just went to the back of the bus. We heard screaming so loud, and then it suddenly stopped. He came and walked back up to us. There was a trash can right next to us, and he held a bottle of clear yellowish liquid, and he just tossed it into the trash can, which was sitting right next to Jinu. And then he just walked straight back out. Me and Jinu turned to each other, and we were both thinking, what is going on? So when the bus finally arrived at our stop, it was in a compound, a villa, which Ben lived in. When we arrived at his house, the three of us, me, Pablo, and Jinu, stood there, speechless, frozen on the spot. This was a huge house. It was 5 stories tall. He had his own private swimming pool in his backyard. In the basement, he had a bar as well as a karaoke station. And when we walked up to his porch, a familiar smell came over me. A smell that reminded me of Jinu, the smell of new shoes. I looked down and saw a mountain of new basketball shoes, enough to make even Jinu jealous. When we walked into his house, we were greeted by a woman, probably his mother. She told us, "You guys can drop your bags down here. We should probably have dinner first." And so we walked in. Across from us was a doorway which led to the dining room, and next to it, a set of wide and long stairs. When we entered the dining room, it had a roof that was much higher than this one, and above it hung a crystal chandelier. Below it was a round table, enough to seat up to 12 guests. We sat down and started introductions. Turns out that Ben actually had a younger brother, probably 2 or 3 years younger than him. He looked about the same, but younger. After the introductions, Ben decided he would give us a tour of his house. First, we went downstairs to the basement. We grabbed a few Perrier waters from his fridge, and we drank it all. And then we headed up to 2 giant queen-sized beds, which were sitting in 2 different rooms. But with Jinu and Pablo, you guys should know, they are not a good combination to put together. They continuously argue and fight. And I was left there wondering, why am I left here with this responsibility to look after these 2? And so, for some reason, we had 2 huge beds, which Pablo and Jinu decided to ignore. So we were all stuck, and we decided, for some reason, to sleep on one bed together. That night, I remember everything. We stayed up, Jinu and Pablo arguing. We even found a small doll that belonged to Ben, or what used to belong to him, and we were using it and hiding it while Jinu was showering. And when he entered, he would just scream for a minute straight, and we would just hide it across his face and just move it around whenever he tried to sleep. The next day, we went back to the tournament. This was the time when our school played AISG's best team. And this game, we got completely destroyed. I remember the score was probably 40-10 maybe. And afterwards, our team was distraught. We were sad and in despair. We tried to get together and tried to make a plan. We knew that because we had beaten every other team, we would play them again tomorrow in the finals. When we went back to Ben's house, it turns out that his compound actually had another bigger swimming pool. Too bad we didn't have our swimsuits. They also had a basketball court. And so that's what we decided. Me, Jinu, Pablo, and Ben. Ben helped us out because we were going to play ASG's A-team the next day. And we just shot baskets. We played horse. We played 2-on-2 for an hour or two. And we were preparing for the next day. And so the next day comes along, the final day of SDRC. I remember we had to play QSI first for second and third place. The game was close, and I still remember this because Jinu was running down the court for an easy layup, only to have Rohit sprint down and slap the ball right out of his hand and have the ball bounce back across the entire court. However, even though Jinu did get blocked, we kept on playing. I remember CJ, he actually had a ban on him for no fast break layups because for some reason he just couldn't make them. And so he was told to just stop, jump, and just shoot. And in the end, we went to overtime, but we ended up beating QSI, which meant we had one more shot at taking AISG out. This guaranteed us second place, which meant we'd get our pizza party and we'd be able to pour Gatorade all over Mr. Park. However, we still wanted to get first, and we played the game of our lives. We were doing fine, I would say, up until the second half of the game. We were tied at about 20 to 20 points. I remember Jinu and I, we were shooting three-pointers nonstop. CJ would do his layups, Jackie would get his rebounds, and we would just play. Before the game, actually, Pablo had been, well, I don't know why he did this, but he decided to have a small tussle with Leanne. They had these balloons that were supposed to be used for cheering, but then they had a sword fight for some reason. And then I remember Leanne and Pablo fought over one of them, but then Leanne suddenly let go. Pablo fell over and banged his head so hard on the ground that he wouldn't be able to play most of the next game. And so our team, it was the second half against AISG. We had pulled it together, but we were suddenly falling apart. The score kept getting higher for AISG. Our passes kept getting intercepted, and our shots just wouldn't drop. And so the final whistle blew. We turned towards the scoreboard, and AISG had crushed us, 40-20. We gathered together as a team. We shook AISG's hands, and then we fell back into sadness. We knew that even though we didn't get first place, it would have been awesome, but we didn't. We got second, and Afterwards, we poured Gatorade, hot and sticky, all over Mr. Park. We ended up having a pizza party at Sports Awards, and even though we didn't get first, it was a fun experience. We bonded as a team, and I think that's one advantage that we have. Even though ASG was home court, me, Jinu, and Pablo got to spend time bonding as a team, sleeping together, just having fun. And so I think that the most important thing was that we got to build a better friendship between us. Thank you.